Login accepted.
Hey guys, sorry. Just getting some questions in the room. We'll get started in just a second. But also, if you're a graduate student and you have classes on the weekends, which tryouts is happening, please just try to talk to us about it. We'll try to work something out for you guys, find a solution for that. But I'll go over the tryouts information at the end. We're gonna, hey, right now, if you guys could just sign in, and if you are trying out, please fill out the registration for tryouts. I want that filled out by Wednesday. If you don't fill it out before Wednesday, you might not be able to try out because we do have to prepare your environments for you guys. So I'm going to repost all the sign-in links in case you joined after. So just in case the short link on the slides don't work because people have had trouble with that. Um, you can all see my slides, right? And just to go over and try out sign up a little bit, some of you guys might be doing right now. So there's a bunch of required questions. There are also some optional questions. These are just kind of for our own metrics and curiosity of what kind of people are interested in trying out. They're not going to affect your placement on the team, and they're also optional to fill out if you just didn't want to share that information right now. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. All right. So thank you guys. Um, all right, so welcome to week 6. We're going to be going over consulting this week. Consulting is, and let me know if you guys can't hear me or anything. Consulting is the other half of penetration testing. So obviously there's your technical skills and all the hacking stuff, but also you got to have a way to show your clients what you've made and what you've done. And that's going to be the consulting part. So sign in here, please. I already linked it in the chat, so I'll just move forward. So where we are in the boot camps right now, this is the final lecture. This is all about tying it all together. So next weekend we will have tryouts. I'm going to go more over the tryout information at the end of this, and I already shared the registration if you'd like to go ahead and fill that out already. So what we'll be going over today is why do we want to care about the business, the professionalism and ethics side of things, communication, and then also, of course, the tryouts information. Hey. So why business? 1 second. Why do we have to care about the business side when we are very technically focused professionals? So Hack the Box and other labs have been here to help you practice methodology, learn your fundamentals, and learn the techniques and tools. Your goal is often to reach the highest admin privileges you can. It doesn't give you a whole picture of why this box would even exist in a real corporate environment. Sometimes the situations can be a little unrealistic, even. However, in the real world, when pen testing for a client, you're going to have to deal with live production environments and deal with real users. This can also open new attack paths, such as social engineering, which normally don't exist in things like Hack the Box or Try Hack Me. You might also find resistance to your usual techniques. Doing Hack the Box and other challenge labs, you might be used to being able to just brute force a bunch of passwords, but doing these techniques in the real world can have consequences. They can bring down services, denial of service them, or lock down accounts, which is going to disrupt business for clients and not make them very happy. So what is our purpose as penetration testers? So our hacking is going to be done to help clients better their defense. Uh, we're not just being paid to test their skills for fun. We're not just trying to own them for fun. Clients need to get something out of our engagement to be able to justify the costs. So we want to give them actionable solutions and information about the problems we found. We need to tell them how we did it and what they can take from it. So when we give them solutions, we need to understand their business priorities, their service configurations, their defensive strategies. Not all fixes is going to be suitable for every client and for every situation and client. Communication is going to be key. And if we don't do this, we kind of just wasted their time and money. So providing value, what kind of communication we can expect of clients during the engagement, we will often be approached by the client security team and IT team who will bring questions to us. And these questions can be like some of the examples here, what are some recently exploited vulnerabilities that we need to watch out for? Hey, we're the ones who just triggered these alerts. Was this activity you and not like an actual attacker, etc.? They also might give specific objectives depending on the company. They might be most concerned with PII leaks, which is personally identifiable information. Or maybe they're just more concerned about a critical service they're about to push out and want to make sure it's secure. And so if you just ignore those objectives and you just tunnel vision, try to get root, try to get admin, they're not really going to appreciate that because that doesn't necessarily help them achieve their goals. So you want to be efficient. And also, clients will give you a scope. You will have certain things you are permitted to attack and certain things you are not permitted to attack. And attacking the things you're not permitted to is potentially a crime because you're hacking something you do not have permission to do. And so you want to have good communication with your clients, as I mentioned earlier. If something's out of scope or if that scope is not quite clear, whether or not this one aspect of it lies in scope or out scope, is an attack that's permitted, you just want to communicate with them. It's better you ask and get clarification over attacking something. Otherwise, you don't want to just do it and then deal with the consequences later because the consequences can be pretty bad. So they'll appreciate you reaching out and being communicative. And then after the engagement, you're going to work on reporting, and then you're going to work it may depend on your engagement, but for the sake of the competition, you do a presentation. And I'm going to talk more about those aspects later. Oh, any questions so far? If you have any questions, feel free to put in the chat or just, speak up. I do believe the speakers are on. I should be able to hear you. Okay, I'll just continue. So, professionalism and ethics. So, on the professionalism side of things, you really want to consider things not just from the offensive perspective, but from the business perspective. So, communication obviously is going to be important. You may notice that's a theme here. We want to consider the uptime of their services. Usually, these are live environments with real people working on them, and they might be environments that are even available to the public. So, you want to make sure things stay up. You want to consider their personal objectives for the pen test, like why did they hire you? What is it that they want to make sure is secure? And you also want to consider, of course, the scope, as I mentioned earlier. And then also you want to take care when handling fragile or outdated technology. Not every business is just going to have new Windows operating systems completely updated. There are reasons people might have really old, 20-plus-year-old operating systems that if you were to scan them aggressively could crash, could bring things down. And you also want to consider when testing them that it might not be that easy to just replace. So you have to be understanding of what is a vulnerability versus a feature. Sometimes, like to be the most secure, we want to use like principle of least privilege, right? We want to make sure accounts don't have access to everything, but some accounts will have to have access to critical things that if that account was owned would make their environment vulnerable, but is that inherently a vulnerability or is that really just a feature of that account? Like that's something they need for their business. Then of course, we want to be considerate of the costs they're spending on this penetration tests. They tend to spend a lot of money on it and spend a lot of time doing it. So they're not going to appreciate you wasting their time. So communicating with clients, once again, this is super important. I worked in customer service for like 5 years and I went back to college because I didn't want to work in customer service ever again. But here I am, once again working in customer service. But a lot of the skills are very applicable and transferable between this. You need to be prepared to explain things to non-technical audiences, things that are very technical. So you need to understand that the customer, the client, they are not going to necessarily be experts at your job. You're the expert, but you have to be able to explain it to them and explain why they should care. Someone who's non-technical, they don't need to know all the details of the attack, but they should know how it affects their business. You also are going to have to probably answer some tough questions. You're going to learn how to say no respectfully. Sometimes the customer isn't always right. Working in customer service, you would have customers who come up and say, "Hey, can I use this coupon for this discount that expired like 10 years ago?" And obviously the answer is no. But if you just tell them no, they don't feel very cared for. You want to learn how to say no in a very respectful way. You want to make them feel like you care about their problem. You want to say, "Hey, I hear you. Sorry, we cannot do that for you. But like, here's some other options or some other ways we can work with you to get to your goal that you wanted with the question you asked us." Um, because sometimes they will just ask for things that you cannot do. You also, usually when they get your report, it's probably going to be a pretty bad day for their security team because you're probably going to show them all the vulnerabilities in their environment and all the ways they messed up when they set this up. So have empathy, don't roast them. You're not here to go brag about how you owned them. You're here to work with them to help them solve the problems they have, not against, you're not working against them. So some examples of some tough questions is like, can you perform penetration tests during off hours? This is convenient for some customers because it's going to prevent you from interfering with the business operations of the day-to-day. But depending on your situation, might not be feasible. You may not want to work graveyard hours, and it might also prevent you from utilizing some things like social engineering towards employees or any other attacks that would require activity on the environment to take advantage of. Um, so you want to still be able to explain to them, hey, here's the benefits actually of why we might want to do it on hours versus off hours. And you just want to be able to work with them, be empathetic and understanding of what they want, but try to guide them towards the right answer without compromising what they want, but also not saying yes to things that you just can't do. And for example, a good one is they may ask you to remove something from the report because whatever is in that report, their security team, their IT team, whoever made that decision or missed that vulnerability might be in trouble. And it's going to probably possibly like make them look bad. But will make them look worse is if that vulnerability actually gets taken advantage of by a real threat. If they don't fix it, it's going to be much worse for them. And also, this is about your reputation on the line. You don't want to be known as like a penetration testing company that missed some really obvious vulnerability just because you removed it from the report because they didn't want to have that in the report, you know? It's about your reputation, your liability, but also their liability because you got to explain to them, hey, if we leave this off and you don't take care of it, there will be way worse consequences than just whoever reads this report. Um, and then also they like to ask, like every single competition, I feel like they always ask this, how's our security compared to other companies you've pen tested? Obviously, a lot of us are students and haven't really pen tested any real other companies, but think about it in the real world. You wouldn't want to just expose what's wrong with other companies that you've worked for. You sign an NDA. You can't just like tell them, hey, yeah, all these other companies also had this vulnerability because then you're exposing them. You don't know if they fixed that vulnerability yet. You really need to be careful with this, but you also want to just handle this question gently because often the answer will be like, no, your security is not very good compared to other companies. So you have to tell them, be honest, be like, no, your security is below average, but here's the things you can do to fix it. So this is another way you just want to be empathetic and understanding while also being firm in what you found. So, any questions so far, by the way? Okay. So, uptime, super important. Don't bring their services down. The attacks you do, you need to understand what they are doing. This isn't hack the box where if you just like bring down the website on accident, you can just like reset the box or whatever. You need to understand the commands you're running. When you run nmap, do you know what every option is doing, like the data it's sending? You don't want to clog the pipe. You don't want to denial of service them. You don't want to lock out accounts by brute forcing a bunch of passwords because the users are not going to be happy. And also, you really don't want to add vulnerabilities to the environment. For example, you are able to take advantage of an exploit that allows you to create like a domain admin. Cool, awesome. That's your domain admin. And let's say you're thinking, what's the easiest and quickest way for me to access the domain admin? I'm going to make the password 123. You just added a domain admin to the environment that has password 123. And if there's a threat, the threat can simply take advantage of that. These are live, real environments, unlike, Hack the box, try hack me. I know I keep just saying hack the box, but I know that's the biggest example. Um, so you want to be careful about what you also add to the environment. Maybe don't add a web shell, even if you want to prove you can do it. Um, because find a different way to prove you can do it without adding vulnerabilities to an environment. You're going to want to be careful with that. They will not be happy if you make them more vulnerable. And above all, just communicate with your client. If you're concerned that something you do might cause harm, talk to them about it. And if you really want to do that attack because you think it's important to prove it, um, you may want to talk to them about the benefits of it compared to the risks and make sure you guys are on the same page so that also if something does happen, their team will be ready for it. So objectives and scope. You really want to focus on the objective and stay in scope. I think it's a struggle for literally all of us. You really just want, we get in the winner's mindset where you just want to win. You just want to get admin. You want to prove you can get admin. Not everything is going to be vulnerable to that though. Do not just tunnel vision down getting root, getting domain admin. You want to be able to also prove the vulnerability without causing downtime, as I mentioned earlier. So, and if a target is out of scope, um, even if like you're like, ooh, it seems vulnerable though, and it might help me pivot to this other box that is in scope and help me get admin, you really do not want to be crossing those lines. So again, this is a good thing where you can communicate with the client. If you see something that you think is vulnerable and out of scope, they may want to know about that, but do not step out of scope seriously, and just don't get locked in trying to get root. Just focus on the objective. And so the cost, you're being paid for your work. They don't have infinite money. You're not going to have infinite time to do this. You're going to want to work efficiently. Your mediations that you give them also will cost time and money. When you say, hey, you're going to want to patch all these systems, patching systems in live environments in large corporations is actually like pretty difficult. It does actually take a lot of time and testing and making sure things won't go down. So why should they hire you instead of just someone to patch things? Um, So you want to show them they made the right choice hiring you over those things of direct benefits. So prove that you can identify problems in ways that someone hired to simply patch things would not be able to. Okay. I pause again for questions and water. Okay. So communication, back to communication. So should they listen to you? We're all students here. At least I think most of us are. But during the penetration test, whether it's competition or tryouts, you are the expert, the professional penetration tester that they hired for a reason. So you should be confident. You should also know your attacks. You should know the theory behind them. You should know the mitigations. Do not just be doing things you don't even know what they do, because if they ask you about it and they find out you're running something on their environment that you have no idea what the consequences for, they're not going to be happy. You do also want to be able to admit when you don't know things. We can't know everything there is in the world. In technical fields like this, people tend to specialize in things too. So you should just be honest. And especially if you make a mistake, you need to be honest and speak as soon as possible to your point of contact to minimize any damages. They'll probably already know if you mess something up, and they'll really appreciate getting a heads up as soon as possible. Um, and then if you need to just defer to something, just do it. If you need to tell them you currently don't have an answer, but could get back to them later with an answer, just do that rather than just bluffing. The worst thing you can do is just bluff and get called on it. You really don't want to embarrass yourself, especially during these competitions. There's a lot of uh, pretty impressive people that you will probably possibly want to work with someday. You really don't want to be known as someone who will just lie. So, reporting is everything. It's you're not going to get any points in these competitions if you don't report. And in the real world, they're also not going to get anything beneficial from your engagement if you're not giving them some sort of report at the end. So you want to log everything you do. You want to take screenshots like crazy every single step of every single exploit you do, you basically want to take a screenshot of it and save that. Try to stay organized. Anything? What's up?
Is there a template that you go by, especially for the teams that have competed in the past, to do some work prior to the competition?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, someone just asked a question in the room. If there's a template that we work on prior to the competition day, yes. Yes, we spend a lot of time on our template. So on the side there, I have a link actually to exactly that. So those are all the global reports. It's going to be from all the past years, I believe, and I believe just a like month ago they uploaded the ones from last year that we did. So everyone who makes it to globals, they share those reports. They do anonymize them, so you don't see like which school submitted which. But yeah, those are really good examples to look through. It's gonna really help you, especially if you're trying out and you're gonna want to mimic some of these. Obviously, also these reports are made by a team of like 6 people. Um, and if you're trying out, you're going to be a team of one person. So don't feel like your report is going to look exactly the quality and length of theirs. It's okay. Um, so just to go over some of the sections that we expect in the reports and that companies generally expect in the reports, this is pretty standard sections you'll find in basically any penetration test report. The executive summary. This is what the CEOs read. This is what the high level executives read. This section should be high level, not technical speak. Anyone who's just doesn't know anything technical should still be able to understand it, which can be a bit difficult, but it's just necessary. It should give all the immediately important information about the engagement without having to read the rest. Generally, it's like one page. Really try not to waste any words here because you're fitting what might be like a 140-page report in one page. You want to highlight like the most important weaknesses they had, what you recommend to do first, because these executives are going to be the ones like signing the check for those people to go fix those issues, right? You spend the funding. So this is one of the most important sections, even though it's the shortest section. Um, the next, and the order these are in can honestly vary between teams and companies. But you'll see if you look at the reports, you'll see that some people put them in different orders. The executive summary is almost always like first. But then you have the engagement summary or the attack narrative. So this is going to be a chronologically ordered timeline summary of everything you did. This should show how you were able to navigate the environment. It should include both your successes of what you hacked into and what you succeeded at, but also your failures. Like it needs to show you did your due diligence when testing. So even if you didn't find vulnerabilities in something, you want to say, hey, we tried this attack and we tried this attack and this attack and it wasn't vulnerable. They want to know that because they want to know also what they managed to defend against. And then we have the methodology section. So this section is where you approach an environment, where you outline how you approach an environment like theirs and why you might want to approach it that way. There's a lot of standardized pen testing methodologies out there that you can take inspiration from. I really recommend looking at the report examples for this one because it's kind of hard to explain exactly what it ends up looking like. And those ones will also probably list some of those standardized methodologies that you can then look into and see what works best for you and what you want to write your methodology section as. So yeah, learn from how others tackle this section, honestly. And then we also have the strategic sections, the strengths, weaknesses, and recommendations. So you want to outline the client's strengths. You want to show that you did your due diligence, even where you didn't find vulnerabilities. And you also want to help soften the blow of the next sections because the next sections are going to be about how they messed up. And this will also probably help the security team, the IT team, who you will probably be working closely with. When they do take this to the executives, they can say, hey, we did do some things good. Here are those things we did good. That's probably going to help them want to hire you again. Um, and it's also going to help them learn what they do well, which can help them when tackling their weaknesses. And weaknesses, the strategic weaknesses section. This part is not the list of every vulnerability. This should highlight and group together themes of vulnerabilities you saw in the environment that created the most impact in your engagement. So this could be something like a weak password policy where you both repeatedly reused passwords and use passwords that were like not complex. You don't have to list every single username that had weak passwords. You don't have to like, this is not a section to just list everything. It's a section to summarize the big themes. And then we have the recommendations. So those kind of spin off the weaknesses. They should help guide a client how to fix their most critical weaknesses in a way that's actionable and takes into account the unique needs of the client. If this is a client that uses a lot of operational technology that like is really old and ancient, factory machines are like 20 years old, and if they were to replace it, it would cost them $3 billion. Your solution to an old, outdated system like that should not just be like, hey, just replace it, easy, because it's not that easy. You need to take into account what the client is going to be able to do. You need to understand the cost of the recommendations that you might be asking for. But you also want to, be honest and give them your recommendations, what they need to do. Um, yeah, and then the technical findings section. That's the list of vulnerabilities/findings and their remediations. So we're going to get into this more in a minute, but basically, this is where you list every single vulnerability, and you don't hold back on any of the technical talk. Some key tips for reporting. Report as you go. Do not leave things until last minute. Be very organized in your documenting. When you find a vulnerability, probably start a vulnerability block. Make sure you throw those screenshots in there. Make sure it's all together and organized for when you finally go through and fully write it out. You will really regret leaving it to the last minute. I think our team's pretty good at not leaving it to the last minute, but even then we run into parts. It's really miserable if you leave this last minute. Just trust me on this. That's my warning. If you're trying out, believe me, report as you go. You should also understand technical writing, understand what you are writing, and also know the differences between technical and high-level writing. Don't bogus or BS. The technical parts, the technical sections will be read by a technical audience. And that audience is probably going to understand their environment better than you do because they probably built it. So findings, the technical findings, this is like the meat of the entire report. All the points you get in the competition, that is not, you really don't really get points, I guess, in real life, right? Competition points, though. This is how you prove you did the exploit. This is where it's going to get you all the technical points for each exploit. Your finding needs to be anything that affects the security posture of the client and is capable of being remediated. So a finding can be like a CVE, critical vulnerability to their operating system that's outdated or something that needs to be patched. But it also can just be like, hey, a user has way more privileges than they should, which allowed us to pivot through the environment. And maybe those privileges can be taken or mitigated in some way. The criticality of the finding, each findings are listed from usually critical, high, medium, low, and then sometimes informational findings. So this section's a bit more complicated, and there's always lots of debates on what the criticality of a vulnerability is. We've had lots of disagreements, and we have to basically come up with our own interpretation. You want to have a reasoning to back it up. We tend to have a section in our report that outlines why we give things a high criticality versus a low criticality. We also determine the criticality based on impact versus likelihood. So the impact is going to be what it does to the environment. Like, hey, this exploit allows you to, get domain admin. That would be pretty bad. And then the likelihood is how likely is someone going to be able to do this attack? Do they need access to something already? Do they need to already have another user owned to be able to get to this other user? Do they need to be able to access a website that is only accessible by like certain people? That sort of thing will determine likelihood. And then the remediation. So this is always like the hardest part because we become experts at attacking things, but here's where you have to also be an expert at fixing things. So you have to give them clear ways they can fix the findings that you find. And you need to be very careful here. You do not want to make promises. You do not want to over exaggerate something or under exaggerate something. You do not want to say, hey, just do this and it'll fix everything and you'll never have a problem again. Because if there is a problem again, you would be um, possibly held liable for that, basically. All right. Now, technical writing. Um, so in technical writing, you want to be very precise. You want to be very exact in your words. You want to be accurate. You don't want to be unclear. They should know exactly what machine you're talking about. They should know exactly what user you're talking about. You just you just want to be careful here not to leave anything unclear. If they think something's a different user than it actually is, that would be bad for them because then they're going to fix something that's not the problem, for example, you know? And then acronyms, so you don't want to repeatedly say like a bunch of clunky phrases, and you probably don't want to type that either. It's just going to take more time. So the way we do it is we write it out in full once, then give the acronym attached to it, which we can continue to use throughout the report. Our field is filled with acronyms, so we also don't want to mix it up with something else. So it's important we make it clear what it is that we're referring to when we use that acronym, which is why you need to define it first. And then the terminology. You want to know your definitions of words like exploit, vulnerability, finding, threat, etc. You want to know what that means when you say it, and try not to mix them up. It can be kind of confusing sometimes because some things can kind of mean the same-ish thing. You also want to use very professional verbs. You don't want to say like, "Oh, we hacked you, we pwned you." That's going to sound a bit silly and childish. You want to use something like exploit. Um, and then also understanding what a layman term is versus a proper technical term. What you use depends on who you're talking to. So a layman term might be more appropriate for a non-technical audience, while a technical term might help you be more precise, which is important when talking to other technical audiences. So you just kind of have to use best judgment depending on your situation, scenario, and who you're talking to just understand which word might be more appropriate. And then also, so that it's active versus passive voice. I know we're not English majors unless you are, um, but you're probably not if you're here. So active voice is going to be something like our team exploited this vulnerability. Passive voice will be something like the exploit was used by our team. Um, you can Google this for better guides to be more exact. We try to use active over passive, and we try to be very consistent in what we do. Um, so just keep this in mind. Use, I don't know if Grammarly helps with this. That might help with this to just check your use of voice because it can be easy to mix them up, honestly. And then presenting, yay. We all love presenting, right? Are you all ready to present? Should we have a presentation for tryouts? Vote now. All right, so presenting is really important. You're gonna use it in your future, whether you like it or not. I've been having to get a lot better at it because at my internship, they're always having me present to like a lot of higher level people who are also like way smarter than me. So it's really good to get used to this in a competition environment where you have more space to mess up, I guess. Honestly, it's just we have to do it, right? So I'm doing it right now. So the main stuff we do in our presentation, this is specifically about the competition, the globals competition. We have to do this presentation. Here's what we do for it. We give a proper greeting, say, hey, here's our company, here's what we do, here's our specialists, so they understand that they hired the best of the best, even if maybe they didn't. And then we give an overview of the engagement. Here's a summary of the engagement. Here's how many vulnerabilities, whatever, whatever. Then we're gonna want to explain the findings, and we want to explain them in ways that aren't too technical because when presenting, it is for a mixed audience. Now, in your future careers, it might not always be for a mixed audience. You do just have to know your audience. But speaking for the competition, it's a mixed audience. So there's some high level people. There's also some technical people. So you want to be able to explain your findings, kind of some of your steps, your methodology that you used, and you want to go over also the strengths, weaknesses, and recommendations you gave in the report. And you want to prepare for questions. These people who you're presenting to are going to have limited time in their day for you. So you're going to want to make sure to do this in a concise, organized manner, and also make sure they have time to ask those questions. And you're going to have to prepare for some tough questions. They probably will ask you about things on your report that they maybe think you did wrong, that they maybe think you messed up at, and you just got to be, they will try to throw their toughest questions at you. And if you can't answer the question, don't be afraid to defer it to your teammates. And definitely, as I went over before, do not lie, do not bluff, be honest if you don't know something. But when you don't know something, you don't have to just shrug and say, I don't know. You can promise like, hey, I'm sorry, we actually can't answer that right now. I would be able to get back to you later at a later date, maybe with an answer to that, so that I can make sure I can give you the accurate information. That kind of thing. Um, so verbiage and gestures are important. As I said earlier, be sure you know who you're talking to, know what your audience is. So when you use terms, you know whether or not they need to be less technical, more technical. I don't know, don't flail your arms around or whatever, stand straight. Um, and also, so it's not just what you say, it's also how you look saying it. You probably want to dress more professionally. We always dress up very professionally, like in this picture, for our presentations at the competition. And probably the best thing you can do is just like Google how to prep for a presentation. Um, there's tons of guides online. Um, things that are not, it doesn't have to be applicable just to like technical presentations. It can be any sort of practice preparing for a presentation any public speaking skills will help for this. Okay. Any question about any of the content? Feel like I rushed through it a little, but any questions at all? Because this will kind of, for the tryouts, you will be writing a report. And you're going to basically have to take into consideration all this business stuff to get any points at all. Okay, so just going over the tryouts. Please use this registration link. I put a QR code for once. And I will post the link again in the chat, just in case someone joined late. It's going to happen next weekend, October, August 23rd, 10 a.m. to August 24th to midnight. If for some reason these times don't work for you because you're like a grad student, have classes on the weekends, just talk to us. We are gonna have to work something out. But otherwise, everyone else will be doing it at this time. The briefing will happen August 23rd at 9:30 a.m. The tryout packet will also be released before the tryouts. It should be a day before the tryouts, sometime August 22nd. So you want to read that packet first and prepare for questions that you can then bring to the briefing. And then your report is going to be due before August 25th. There will be no late submissions. If you submit late, you will not be on the team. We will not be able to give you points for that report. So do not submit last minute. Like give yourself like 10 minutes before the deadline to submit because we do not want there to be any sort of technical issues. Yeah. So this is going to be the same for the competition. You cannot submit late or else you just will not. Submitting something unfinished is going to be better than submitting nothing, is what I'll also say. So you also want to anonymize your report. We're going to be grading you guys anonymously. We don't want to know whose report it is. Um, that's the way we just do everything fair, right? So you're going to make up there'll be more information in the briefing packet, but you're going to make up a company that you work for. When I tried out, my company was called Rubber Duck Security. For ITC, our team was called Ouroboros Security. And you're going to act like you're that team. Even though you're just one person, you're going to start speaking like you're a team. There will be no teams in tryouts. I had someone actually ask me about this yesterday. No teams. You're just alone, but you can pretend it's like a security team. Pretend you're a company, basically. Okay. So bonus optional work. There is no homework this week. Yay. Instead, spend this time to catch up on any homework you may have asked for extensions or you're doing a bit late. But optionally, you can create a report You can use vulnerabilities you found in previous lab. It doesn't need to be also a full report. You don't need every single section. If there's any part of the report you just want to practice and work on and get feedback for, just create that section. Um, You'll want to use the vulnerabilities found in previous labs if you're trying to practice finding blocks or something. So the web lab, the Linux lab, Windows lab, whatever. Our fictional client is going to be MindMend AI. We'll give more information about them in the briefing packet. They're an online AI therapy service. And then you can look at those examples that was on the previous slide. I'll grab the link and put it in the chat in a minute, actually, for that. But also, I have a link here. I'll also share in the chat in a second for example finding block templates that you could just copy and paste and use that one. So you don't have to like make your own if you just want to practice writing them and not just formatting them. Yeah, so you can use those resources. And then you can message me if you have any questions. You can also message Wong or Miller if you'd like. I'm just going to offer him and his advice too. Um, but yeah, and we'll create a spot. You can submit this on um, the Canvas page, whatever, the Canvas course. That's what I meant. And we'll try to give you feedback. Try to submit this genuinely very soon, as soon as possible. Because if you submit it, like, I don't know, after Wednesday, we basically will not have time to get your feedback back to you before you have to try out. So sorry, it is a little bit more rushed, just because the tryouts are coming up and we want you to have this feedback for the tryouts. If it's after Wednesday, I have no promises that you will get that feedback in time. And that's it, actually. That is it. Any questions at all? Anyone trying out that wants to know more information? Someone in the room?
The report is the simplified version of the report, but the actual tryout one is the full thing.
Yes. So he asked, is the bonus report just like the simplified version, but the actual tryout is going to be like the whole report? Yeah. Tryouts is going to be the whole report, the kind of things you see in those examples. It's okay, again, if your report isn't going to be 140 pages of whatever they do for these examples, because those are teams of 6 and you are a team of 1. So don't expect to Oh, and okay, I'll answer that in a second. Yeah, don't expect to write as much as these people did, basically. Um, so are the tryouts only for CPP students, or can I also try out? Unfortunately, yes, it is only for CPP students because this is our team representing our college. If you're interested in doing CPTC, um, you're gonna have to find a team at your own college. And it is like a collegiate, is that how you pronounce it? Competition. So it's like for college students specifically. So you do have to be a college student. Um, I could share where they have their registration stuff. Just message me on Discord if you want me to give you the info if you're trying to make your own team, because I think that would be super cool. I really recommend it. It's a good experience. But yeah, I'm really sorry if you're not CPB student, you just can't try out.
Not reading in person at all for the tryout.
Oh, someone asked, are we not meeting in person at all for the tryouts? Yep, it's all online. Just done remotely. Can you imagine if we tried to keep you guys like in a room for 2 full days? Um, no, it's all remote. So oh, you're good. You're good. Yes, is there a briefing packet? Yes, there will be. Currently, no. Um, we're working on that. Hopefully, you should get out the day before tryouts. Give you a bit of time to read it. It'll give you a bit of information about the company, and then you can bring more questions for the briefing time at 9:30 a.m. on the 23rd. Right? Yes. Oh, it'll also be the tryout report will be submitted on Canvas. So like make sure you're logged in and stuff. Don't submit last minute. I swear to God. It's okay if there's like embarrassing mistakes in your report and you have to submit last minute. It's better than nothing. We've left some embarrassing things on my reports, and I've seen other people leave pretty embarrassing stuff on their reports. It happens. I'm talking like parentheses, write more here kind of notes that they just left highlighted. It's pretty good, honestly.
How do you check for those?
Someone in the room just asked, how do you check for those things? Gosh. Okay, actually, I do have a technique for this. I use certain symbols in any sort of notes that I have that I'm going to replace later. Like, for example, I'll do like dollar sign. Here's the note I wrote, and then dollar sign at the end. And then, or I'll do like double dollar sign. And nowhere else am I going to have like a double dollar sign. So then at the very end of the report, when I'm doing my final checks, I control F, look for all those double dollar signs or whatever symbol I chose, and then make sure to remove and clean those up in case I left anything. Those are just my placeholders for something I need to fill in later. So maybe that would help you guys. Someone in chat asked, CPTC is an in-person competition, right? Meaning that we have to travel to the place where it's held for a region? Yes, it is actually. I just learned that apparently we are hosting our regional tryout at Cal Poly Pomona. They just released yeah, apparently we're hosting it. I mean, I knew that was in talks possibly, but I didn't know that was confirmed. Um, us, the team, are not really a part of the hosting and stuff. Obviously, we don't want to have an unfair advantage. But so if you're in like the Southwest region, I think, I guess that'll be here. Oh my God. So if you're at other schools, we'll see you. That'd be awesome. And yeah, there's a list of regionals when signing up. I looked at the sign up sheet, which they just released like 2 days ago. You can rate like the regionals you want to be in most. And I assume they'll try to match you with your number one. Any other questions? This is our last lecture, so I'm dragging it out. Do you guys want to do presentations for the tryouts? Yes, yes, I see some, I see a lot of nods in the room. All right. All right. I guess I'll let you guys go. No more questions. Feel free to ask in the Discord if you have any more questions. And please, if you want to try out, try to sign up by Wednesday. If you don't sign up by Wednesday, I can't promise you you'll have a tryout spot because we do need to prepare some stuff for you guys. So yeah, thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys so much for sticking with this. Um, gosh, it's already week 6, which is crazy. So thanks, guys. We'll see you hopefully for tryouts.